All right, eighth graders, welcome to mixtape number 3. Because so many of you are at different spots, I have to make these mixtapes. So here is another poem for us to look at. It's called Oranges by Soto. This time we're just going to do it all on paper, make it easier on ourselves. So if you have your paper in front of you, I want you to follow along. We're going to read it first, and then we're going to annotate it by finding figurative language and marking it. And then you're going to answer some questions and write about the theme. All right? Get you ready. All right, it's called Oranges by Soto. The first time I walked with a girl, I was 12, cold and weighted down with 2 oranges in my jacket. December, frost cracking beneath my steps, my breath before me, then gone. As I walked toward her house, the one whose porch light burned yellow night and day in any weather. A dog barked at me until she came out, pulling at her gloves, face bright with rouge. I smiled, touched her shoulder, and led her down the street, across a used car lot and a line of newly planted trees, until we were breathing before a drugstore. We entered, the tiny bell bringing a saleslady down a narrow aisle of goods. I turned to the candies, tiered like bleachers, and asked what she wanted. Light in her eyes, a smile starting at the corners of her mouth, I fingered a nickel in my pocket. And when she lifted a chocolate that cost a dime, I didn't say anything. I took the nickel from my pocket, then an orange, and set them quietly on the counter. When I looked up, the lady's eyes met mine and held them, knowing very well what it was all about. Outside, a few cars hissing past, fog hanging like old coats between the trees. I took my girl's hand in mine for 2 blocks, then released it to let her unwrap the chocolate. I peeled my orange that was so bright against the gray of December that from some distance someone might have thought I was making a fire in my hands. All right, I want you to go back to the first page. I can get back to the first page. I want you to go back to the first page, and I want you to start by looking for some figurative language. On here. So you can go on the first page, and I want you to look for, maybe you noticed them as you went, I want you to look for personification. There are several examples of personification. Personification is when we have something doing something that only a person could really be doing. So I want you to read through and see if you can find places where an object or a thing is doing something that only a human being could do. And when you see it, I want you to mark personification and underline it. When you're done looking on the first page, then turn to the back and look on the second page and see if you can find some personification on there. Remember, personification is an object or a thing that is doing something that probably is a human type characteristic. All right, once you have found the personification, marked it, I want you to go back and look for some similes. There is at least a couple similes in here. A simile is when you compare two dissimilar things using like or as. So read through, see if you can find some similes. There should be a simile on the first page and then a simile on the back. So underline it and mark simile. Again, after you find the simile on the first page, look for the simile on the second page. Now, the one you're going to spend the most time on in here is imagery. Imagery is using the five senses to create a picture. Remember, it's not just sight that we're looking at. It's anything that has to do with sight, sounds, touch, smells, tastes. I want you to see how many places there is imagery. And I want you to underline that and mark it as imagery. There is a lot of imagery. See if you can find all of the imagery. We're looking for feelings, sounds, sights, maybe some taste. Of course. Should take you a little while to find all the imagery. All right. The last thing I want you to look for is a